Hey guys, in this video, I want to show you a revolutionary new way of seeing and understanding why your partner wants space and understanding what you can do to re-attract her back. And this is a new concept that I just introduced to my program. So it's been really mind-blowing for a lot of my clients. I'm sure it'll be mind-blowing for a lot of you to understand why you are facing what you're facing and what you can do to re-attract her. So this video might be a bit long, but I want you to stick around to the end because you don't want to miss a thing here. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills and knowledge to be able to design a thriving relationship on your own. So if you want more content on that topic, then be sure to subscribe to this channel and also click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And before I begin this video too, I also want to let you know that the masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want to join me in that masterclass or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, then be sure to stick around to the very end of this video as well for the announcement on how you can join both those things. And guys, the first thing here, if you want to understand what to do when your partner wants space, you need to first understand why she wants space in the first place. And to do that, we need to understand that in life, there's basically 2 decisions that we make. Decisions with surrender and decisions without surrender. So if you look at decision without surrender here, and you will have felt this before when you make a decision, for example, buying a house, choosing a partner, choosing a job, but logically, you might understand that this is something that you need to do. Emotionally, you haven't caught up with it yet. And so you are not ready to jump in with both feet to the decision yet. So when you understand this, you understand that there's really 3 levels of decisions here. The first level, the lowest level, is when you have no decision. That's when logic and emotion haven't really gotten there yet. Both logic and emotion. Then you go to the next step, which is decisions without surrender. That's when logic has caught up. Logically, you know that's the right decision, but emotionally, it hasn't caught up yet. Then the third level of decision is when both your emotions and your logic has caught up there. That's when you surrender to that decision. And if you look at your decisions that you make without surrender, you'll find that you're very wishy-washy about it. You're always going to be spending every moment questioning whether that was the right decision, going back on your decisions. And so when we understand this, we understand that when your partner says they want space, all they're saying is that I haven't really been able to surrender to the decision to be with you, to be in this relationship, to be with this person, etc. And that's all there is. Either they're at level 1 decision here, level 2 decision here, but they're not at number 3 yet. And the blockers for why your partner may not be able to surrender here could be because of something that you did, could be because of her life experiences in the past that acts as blockers for her to really surrender herself to relationships, to people, etc. But either way, she's experiencing either some emotional or logical blockers there. And we already talked about a major blocker to this path to surrender before when we talk about safety, for example, to lack thereof. So if you want to watch a video on that, click the link above my head also down below this video for a video on what emotional safety is and why it's really the number 1 blocker if you don't have it to a relationship. And if you understand it by this model like this, it explains a lot of her sometimes wishy-washy behavior. The same way when you haven't surrendered to your decision, you tend to get wishy-washy. It explains why she can be very testy, very bitchy sometimes even. It also explains why she says things like she needs to explore things on her own, and she's basically trying to tell you, I'm not at level 3 yet, but I need to gather my own emotional and logical data to get to level 3. That's all she's saying right there. Now at this point, there's really 3 big mistakes, 3 categories of mistakes that people make, and they all fall into what we call hunting. And this hunting can take on many different forms, but usually it takes 3 forms: active, passive, and stoic. So the active form is when you're trying to use your logic plus your emotion here. So again, this is when you are emotional, when you're getting all needy, when you're using emotional manipulation, anger to try to get her to come back to the relationship. The passive is when you do the opposite, when you try to walk away from the relationship, play no contact, for example. Not because you want to give her space, but because you want to play no contact in order for you to create intrigue so that she will come back. So you're doing this in a passive way, but still in a very manipulative way. The stoic approach is when you're using purely logic. You're trying to justify why you've been a good partner, for example. You're trying to show her why leaving may be a bad idea financially for her sake. You might be convincing her, making her promises that you'll do better, etc. But this is you using a lot of logical arguments to try to keep her in the relationship. Now, the interesting thing is that if you see these 3 categories of hunting and you look at other videos on space and them telling you what not to do, you can almost always categorize the what not to do into one of these categories. So I want you to take a look at the 3 here and think about which of the 3 have you done. When your partner says she wants space, she wants a divorce, she wants a separation, she wants to take a break for the relationship, have you done any of these 3 hunting behaviors before? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. So now that we understand that, let's understand why hunting never works. In fact, hunting will always backfire on you. And there's 2 models that we can see this through. The first is the model of falling versus striving outcomes. So understand that in life, there's always 2 different kinds of outcomes that we want to achieve here. There's what we call striving outcomes, which are outcomes that involve physical exertion usually, or willpower. So for example, when you talk about lifting weights, you talk about running faster, you talk about getting something done. For striving outcomes, the more energy you place into it, the more direct energy, the more willpower you use, the closer you get to that outcome. But there's another subcategory of outcomes here called falling outcomes. And when you think about falling outcomes, I want you to think about sleep, for example. When you sleep, when you try to sleep, the more you try to sleep, the more physical exertion you put into falling asleep, the more willpower you place into falling asleep, the less you can actually fall asleep. Now, the problem is when, especially with the masculine nature, when we try to accomplish falling outcomes with the same approach that we use to get striving outcomes. So again, if you try to sleep, if you try to fall asleep, when they call it falling asleep for a reason, if you try to fall asleep by trying to fall asleep, then the less you can actually fall asleep. The same way, they call it falling in love for a reason. If you want your partner to fall back in love with you, the last thing you want to do is to hunt. And hunting is, by definition, a very striving activity. So the more you try to use the passive, the stoic, or the active approach to getting her back, the more you're going to actually push her away. Because falling in love is a very falling action, and you cannot accomplish that by trying to use a striving process. So that's one theory that we can see why hunting never works. The second way we can understand this is when we understand the ingredients to surrender here. So right now, going back to the 3 levels of decisions, I want you to look back in your life and try to think about the decisions that you made in your life that you were able to surrender to, level 3 decision, and the decisions you made in your life that you weren't able to surrender to, so level 2. What are the differences there? What are the ingredients you need to actually get to level 3? You know, if you look at this closely, you'll find that you need 4 of the same ingredients in order to get to level 3. The first is you need to find plenty of evidence to support why that decision is the correct one. Number 2 is you need to find a lack of evidence for why that decision is the wrong one. So for example, if you're applying for a job and you're given during the interview, for example, plenty of evidence that this job is the correct job for you, it's a great job, etc., but you look around and you see plenty of evidence to support why it's not a great job, then you're going to have a very hard time to surrender to the decision, both logically and emotionally. The same way for a partner. If you see that, hey, there's a lot of good things here, but there's also a lot of bad things, it's going to be very hard for you to surrender to the decision. The third ingredient is what we call agency, and that's our freedom to be able to explore and look at other alternatives and the ability to make a decision on our own. So for example, if let's say you go to the interview again and someone tells you, after this interview, you're not allowed to have other interviews, you're not allowed to look elsewhere, you have to make a decision now or never. That pressure tactic is going to make it very hard for you to want to surrender to the decision. The same way, if you feel like you don't have any agency or the power to actually make the decision yourself, someone else makes it for you, it's also going to be very hard for you to surrender to the decision. The last ingredient is time. Sometimes between logic and emotion, there's a huge amount of time that needs to happen before we can surrender to something. And this time especially goes bigger with when you talk about bigger decisions. So when you talk about buying a house, changing your career completely, it's going to take time for you to go from your logical acknowledgement of, okay, I know this isn't the right idea, but to go to, I feel, and I can go all into the fact that this is the right idea, that may take a while there. So when we can understand this model, when we look back at the hunting behaviors again, we can see that when you hunt, when you use active, passive, or stoic, you're basically just trying to create number 1. But you're removing and you're actually destroying numbers 2, 3, and 4. Now, you destroy number 2 for obvious reasons, right? Because if you try the active approach, for example, you can be saying, hey, you can stay with me, and here's all the reasons to stay with me. But the very fact that you're angry about it, the fact that you don't understand why she wants to leave in the first place, shows her that, hey, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. I don't think I want to be here. So this is what we call the paradox of logic, where your words say one thing, but by saying those words, you're showing a completely different subtext behind your behavior. So if you want to watch a video on paradox of logic, I left a video for you up above here or down below this video. This is a crucial one to understand because we call it a paradox for a reason, because most people are making this mistake, but they can never see it. They can never see the paradox of what they're doing. You destroy ingredient number 3 because when you are active, passive, or stoic hunting, you are basically trying to make her feel a certain way, make her feel what you want her to feel. And you're going to remove that agency, that sense of agency completely. And your hunting behaviors might work for a short amount of time. So sometimes people will try to convince their partner to stay, but when their partner decides to stay, it's a very wishy-washy decision. She always seems like she has one foot out the door, one foot in, one foot out, and she can never really commit to you. And so this is when men get even more frustrated when they think like, oh, how come 2 weeks ago you said that you wanted to commit to this relationship, but now you're acting as if like you don't really care. So if you see a lot of hot and cold behavior, if you see a lot of wishy-washy behavior, that's usually a really good sign that you've been hunting in some shape or form. And you're also removing time, obviously, because when you are hunting, you're basically trying to remove that time aspect for her and you're trying to rush the decision for her. So again, when you hunt, you're only creating ingredient number 1 here, but you're destroying 2, 3, and 4, which makes it even harder for her to surrender to the decision and get to level 3 in commitment to you. So now that we know all that, we know the reasons why your partner wants space, we know that the thing we don't want to do is to hunt. Let's talk about what can we do instead. What can we do to start re-attracting your partner here? Now, there's really 5 things that we can do. The first step is you need to understand what we call untethering. And untethering, for those of you who are not familiar with this term, is when you are trying to shift your brain's focus, your brain's addiction towards the outcomes and into the process. So just for you to see how addicted we are to the outcomes right now, if I ask you, for example, right now, how was your day? Most people's responses would be related to the outcomes. Oh, my day was good because certain outcomes happened. My day was bad because certain outcomes happened. Or if I ask you for your motivation, for example, what makes you want to achieve the future goals that you have? I guarantee you that a lot of people will answer some outcome-based things. So our brains are very addicted to looking at the outcomes. And when your brains are addicted to looking at the outcomes like this, you're always going to naturally be hunters because your only motivation for doing that is to have. Once the having goes away, your motivation goes away. So when you're untethered is when you're rewiring your brain towards the process. And so when you talk to people who are truly untethered, when you ask them about their day, for example, they will say, hey, my day was great because despite this outcome happening, I played out this process. I played out the right process. If they look at their day, they look at their future, they're looking forward to doing processes, the process itself, not to get the outcome. So they're not doing to have, they're usually doing because they are. So I want you to pause there and think about that for a bit. Now, the reason why we need to untether first is that when you're tethered, you cannot ever accomplish falling goals. So for example, when you talk about falling asleep, what if you're tethered? What if you're so motivated? What if you're so attached and so focused on the outcome of sleeping? When you're focused on the outcome of sleeping, you can never sleep. Now, another interesting thing too is that when you fall asleep, how many of you have actually remembered the moment that you fall asleep? Most likely never. Because the moment you fall asleep is the moment when you forget about sleeping. When you forget about the act of sleeping, the goal of sleeping. And it's that exact moment when you are untethered like that, and you just simply focus on the process and none of the outcome. That's when you fall asleep. That's when you achieve falling outcomes. So the first step to doing this is to untether. Because a lot of men, they obsess too much about the outcomes. They ask their partner too much about the status of the relationship, for example, because they're fundamentally very tethered. So the first step is to be untethered. I've made many videos on this on my channel before, so feel free to check out the link above my head, also down below this video, for more videos on untethering. Now, number 2 is to actually become the brightest beacon, become the brightest lighthouse. And this is what people often refer to as bettering yourself. But there's really 2 pitfalls here. When people talk about bettering themselves, they're often bettering themselves in all the useless and all the wrong ways, like going to the gym, for example, talking in a different way, becoming richer, getting more wealth, etc. Those are the stuff that doesn't really matter. So what does really matter then? So if you join the masterclass, you will have learned something called the 5 pillars. That's creating emotional safety, creating admiration, etc. So if you look at, for example, models like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll see that when you try to get to the gym, for example, and you look better and you gain more wealth, you're still focusing on the very low level values here. When you can give safety, when you can give admiration, when you can give alignment and sexual passion to that level, you're basically giving those self-actualized goals, which are very difficult for her to get anywhere else. And when you can give your partner something irreplaceable like that, that's when your relationship becomes unbreakable. And that's the moment, guys, when it doesn't really matter what you've done in the past, how much baggage there is, doesn't matter what other guys are doing, your competition per se, and it doesn't really matter what problems you have anymore. Because that's the moment when there's enough admiration for you to say, for example, of all the people I want to face this problem with, it's you. Right? Think about that. And it's the moment when you have safety is when those problems no longer become problems because you can know that you can resolve it. Problems only become problems when you know that you cannot resolve that together. So if you have a hard time believing this, guys, you may not understand the full value of what the 5 pillars are and why they're so important, then I want you to check out my client stories here of them talking about how they've grown the 5 pillars. And I want you to note just how they started from a very dire situation like yourself, but went to a position despite their baggage, despite all the problems, to a point where they're thriving in the relationship right now. And once you become the brightest beacon, you understand how to become the brightest beacon here, guys. You need to understand how to empower your partner to actually explore the alternatives that she's trying to explore. So this can be very, very controversial here, guys, but if you look at a lot of my client stories before, you'll see that a lot of them actually encourage the partner to explore, for example, being single if they want to. And I'm going to say something very controversial. If you want to see other people, if they want to see other people, let them see other people first and actually encourage her to explore there. Now, the problem with most people's approaches is that when their partner says they want space, they instantly assume in their mind, oh, because they want to have someone else. They want to see other people. And they see this as such a bad thing, and they try to force some fake reconciliation here, where they use the active approach, passive or stoic, to try to basically guilt trip her, make her feel very guilty, make her feel regretful, make her feel like she's a messed up person for ever wanting to even explore other relationships, etc. And empowering your partner like this, to explore her alternatives like this, can sound crazy and beta to you, because it goes against all this high value man crap they've been taught. But here's what I say. Only weak men of low value are afraid to have their partner explore, because those weak men are afraid that when their partners explore, they're going to find someone better. They're going to find someone that's a better match. They're going to find someone that can create more value than you can right now. But if you have become truly the brightest beacon, and you can create the most value that no other man can create, which is safety, admiration, etc., then you got nothing to worry about. The same way my clients who are very advanced have nothing to worry about. Now, some people might even say to that argument of, well, Jeff, you don't want to create a temptation for your partner, because once you create a temptation for your partner to actually explore and see other people, then you're going to awaken that side of her and you're going to enable that behavior. If that's what you're thinking, then think about what you're insinuating about your partner here. You're saying that your partner is so animalistic. She's not capable of rational thought like you are, that when given the chance to explore, she will just let all her wild side come in and suddenly want to cheat, want to sleep with all these men and become cheaters forever. That's what you're insinuating. And if that's the case, is there any wonder why your partner wanted to leave in the first place? So I hope that makes sense, guys, and I hope that makes this point a little bit less controversial. And if you want to explore more of these ideologies about why we need to actually empower our partner to explore other relationships, explore the alternatives, then I want you to watch my client stories that I put down below this video. I've sectioned it out for you in the description below so you can find it pretty easily. So I want you to check out those videos, because this is a key paradigm shift that can really change everything for you, like how it's changed everything for my clients as well. And number 4, guys, when you talk about your growth and bettering yourself, you want to better yourself and master something, not until you can do it right, but until you can't get it wrong. So essentially, you want to become a performer here. And again, the reason why this is crucial, guys, is that ingredient number 2 is also very crucial, because while you can do a lot of things very actively to try to show her that you have changed, if you are still making subconscious mistakes and making subconscious mistakes during the key moments, because you haven't made it into your deep programming yet, because you can get it right, but you still get a lot of things wrong, then you are basically destroying ingredient number 2. You're giving her a lot of evidence to support you have changed, but you're also giving her a lot of evidence to support that you haven't changed. And it's going to be very hard for your partner to surrender if you're at that stage. And so these are the 4 ingredients you need, guys. And if you look at these 4 ingredients, they all help you to serve ingredient number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is why when you look at a lot of my client stories, when my clients reconcile, it's not that they have to ask their partner to reconcile. Is that their partner actually comes closer to them. They surrender to the decision themselves because they became the brightest beacon, because they did it in the right ways, etc. And when my clients reconcile, it's real reconciliation, guys, because they have all the ingredients that they need to actually surrender to the decision in full. And when you can become a performer like this too, guys, you will notice that you will have some very creative ideas on how to actually reach out to your partner. That doesn't involve you hunting. But this ability to improvise can only happen when you actually master something that deeply. And to understand what happens when you can master something, watch my client interviews with Eve or Michael, and they can show you how this mastery can lead you to improvise properly around creating opportunities for yourself to create contact and the right kinds of contact. But for now, guys, if you want to learn more about these processes and how to actually re-attract your partner the correct way, then I want you to check out the masterclass I have for you above my head, also down below this video. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact process all my clients have used to get them from a brink of a divorce, brink of a separation, space, taking a break, breakup, whatever it is, to the point where they're thriving right now. And it doesn't matter what your situation is. You'll notice that all these clients may have started off in very unique situations, but all their diagnosis of their problems is the same and the treatments are always the same. So if you want to join me in the masterclass again, guys, or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, then click the link above my head right now, also down below this video, to find out the next steps. But for now, guys, I'll leave you with 2 other videos with more skills and knowledge to be able to design a thriving relationship on your own. For now, guys, I'll see you in the next video.